I'm Brad King, and this is Stories in Steel. On this episode, I spent a humid afternoon with aluminum wheel wizard Mike Curtis. Who knew that learning skills from his father, his infatuation with cars, and then a family trip to Disneyland would lead him down the path to street rodding greatness? With appearances in numerous TV shows and his hands on a plethora of AMBR, Slonaker and Ridler winners, Mike proved that dedication, hard work, and a little imagination can take someone a long ways. Wow, Mike, it's a little toasty down here. I'm not used to the humidity. I'm used to the heat, but it's a little balmy today.
California sunshine.
That's right, baby. So let's talk about you, man.
All right.
Let's talk about how you became Mike Curtis, the guy that makes all the badass AMBR and Ridler and Slonaker and all the crazy wheels. Were you always into machine work? I mean, was that always your thing? What were you into when you kind of first started messing around with cars?
No, I mean, my dad had a gas station growing up, and then later started like a performance shop where they were building muscle cars and stuff like that. And then I was 13. I started working at Mako Auto Body. They had one. It was right next door to my dad's shop. So the guys were like, "Hey." I was hanging out in the summer. They're like, "Hey, you could unmask cars and put the badges back on them and, detail them up." So I did that for the whole summer when I was 13. And then the next summer, they needed me in the prep side. So I started DA-ing cars and watching the guys do body work and whatnot. And
all right.
Moved into masking, kind of worked all around there. And then the next year I started working there. It was like a industrial horseshoe kind of, and it was all car stuff, or mainly. And across the way was a race car shop, and he was building a lot of stock cars, and he did a couple dragsters and stuff like that. And I started working there nights and weekends and cutting out brackets and just kind of shop help.
You were kind of immersed in this whole thing between body work and painting and fabricating. That was kind of your world.
Yeah, and then my dad doesn't know how to weld, and so that was something I really wanted to figure out. And so I started with oxyacetylene, because he had acquired a bunch of exhaust equipment, and so we were starting to do dual exhaust conversions on the new trucks. And the guy that taught me how to do all the bending and whatnot, he wanted to gas weld all the exhausts. So overhead gas welding was kind of how I got started. But then in high school, I took the shop classes, and we did a little bit of arc welding, and we did some foundry work and mechanical drafting. And so I just kind of took in all that stuff I could. And I don't know, enjoyed it and didn't see how I was going to actually put it to use. But then in high school, they had a deal where you go to the community college. So we did half a day at the high school and then half a day the afternoon at the community college. And they had auto mechanics. And so I thought that's where I wanted to go do auto mechanics. And all the guys that were older than me and into cars and stuff like that, they're like, "You don't want to do that. You're going to be completely bored. You're already, kind of past a lot of that stuff, and what they are going to teach you there, the brake jobs and oil change, or stuff that's like, you don't want to, you need to take IDC, industrial design, or IDT, industrial design technologies." And that class was machining, computer-aided drafting, and welding. So I took that my last 2 years of high school. And when I went into the welding class, I was like, "Hey, I already know how to oxy and stick and MIG, and I really want to do TIG." And the teacher was pretty cool. He let me. He's like, "As long as you can show me good samples of all the different types, then I'll let you go off on your own and just TIG weld all day long." So then my senior year of high school, they started offering AutoCAD in the high school too. And it was the same teacher that taught shop. And so, you know, I'd already had him for several classes a year. I was like, hey, I already know all the basics to the AutoCAD stuff. Can I do something else? And he was like, sure, just pick a project on your own and just work on that all, you know, the whole semester and turn it in when you're done. And so I did a coilover shock, all exploded view, isometric in my high school AutoCAD class, and everyone else was drawing boxes and you know, stuff like that. So it was cool, but it was great for me too, because and that was AutoCAD. You know, I was working hard every day trying to get it figured out and make it happen. So I passed that class pretty easy.
Were you taking machine stuff too, or just AutoCAD and welding? Were you doing?
Well, no, because then they also had the manual machining.
Okay.
Our last year they got a CNC machine in there, and so we were doing some project with Colorado State. But so then we go back a little. The summer before my senior year of high school, my mom brought me and my brother and sister out here to California for a Disneyland vacation. After about a day and a half of that, got bored. I knew about Boyd Coddington, and I was like, hey, I think it's around here somewhere. Well, then my mom was like, you gotta get a good resume together, and you gotta like kind of coach me through it. And I was working on stuff with my dad, like customer cars. They had a couple Pro Street cars, and so I was doing that, and I was building my own truck. I started building my own truck when I was 14, like a 48 Chevy. I was always building this thing at nights and whenever I could fit it in outside of work and other stuff that I was doing. And well, the work just helped pay for parts for it.
Okay.
So I sent pictures of that, some other car stuff that my dad was doing, and my mom had me send it with the return receipt, whatever. So you get a receipt of when they signed it.
Right. I
got a handwritten letter back from Boyd that was postmarked on the day that it came in, so I was all excited. We did an interview with him my spring break when my dad came out, and we all met and stuff, and he was, oh yeah, I'll get you set up in a place. And
so were you still in high school when you were doing this, or were you already out of high school?
No, this was spring break of my senior year.
Okay.
And he was, same thing. He's like, yeah, just let me know when you're coming out, and I'll put you to work. And he just put me right into the wheel shop. He's like, here, we'll put you in the wheel shop for now, and you can, let you get used to California, whatever. So I'm working like first job I get. Just there's a cast gotcha center, and you stick it in the mill, and it just cut the little flutes, the little detail on the cast center. They had the way the machines were laid out. There was 2 lathes and a mill, and I was like, oh, I can keep all 3 of these things going, no problem. Because this one takes 10 minutes, and this one might take 20 minutes. So, but I was juggling all 3 machines and keep them running, and everyone else said, hey,
nobody else is doing this.
Slow down, like you're. But that was really great because it only over in the custom shop, because then I got to learn a little more about like setup and putting the tools in, and mostly mill, nothing really on the lathe.
So did you know anything about programming at that point at all, or you were still just, you could see how stuff was written, you could see it, but you weren't part of making it happen?
Right. So when I'm running these 3 machines, I wasn't doing anything at all, and so then I went over to the custom shop, and I learned a lot about that, and then they figured out that I knew how to do CAD work, and they're like, oh, here, we're gonna have you start drawing some wheels, and kind of started teaching me about programming. So the first day I go to the custom shop, Johnny Anderson's like, oh, we need you to, it was getting right before the SEMA show, and they're getting all the display stuff ready, and they had these little name tags for the wheels. And he took me over to a big Apex sander, and he's like, here, you need to just radius the corners on these. So I do a couple, I think I'm doing a pretty good job, and I show him, and he's just like, oh God, the radius, it just over picky. And And like, no, you got it. You know, it's got. I need a perfect radius on here. And so I was like, wow, I really, you know, this is the big time. I gotta step it up. Can't be putting sloppy radiuses. So that was like, I got a lot of that from Johnny, and it was really cool working with him because nothing he did was ever good enough. It was if you did it perfect, it was okay.
It was okay. That's great.
Well, that's just how.
How was Mike? Mike was okay. Yeah.
I got to work with Chip a little bit on wheel drawings because he would sketch them up, and then I drew it in CAD, and then he would come back and critique the drawing and change whatever, you know, didn't match his
Right.
drawing and stuff. But then one day he came over and was like, "Oh, Boyd said that you're out here to build cars, and I'm going to be in the shop on Saturday if you want to come in, and you know, you can do some stuff and, you know, kind of get your foot in over here," which is right in the same cul-de-sac.
Right.
And so I went in, and just one Saturday, and Chip was working on his hemisphere chassis, and he didn't really have anything for me to do, but he gave me a AC compressor, and he's like, "Here, just make a stand that holds the bottom hole 5 inches off the table or whatever." And so I just made some stupid little stand, and nothing really happened out of that. And then everything went bankrupt. I ended up going to a temp agency and getting a job as a machinist.
So how old were you when this
was
was
18.
going on? Oh man, you're just
Oh no, I was 19 by then, because
you're just getting going with life here.
yeah. Well, and then I'm 19 years old, fresh out of high school, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can set up machines, I can do programming, and everyone that looked at me was like, yeah, sure, kid. Like, but then I got a job at a machine shop, and they're like, we don't need any programming, whatever, but we'll try you out doing setups. I did a great job at setting up, and like I was, yeah, they really liked me there, and then they put me on full time. For some reason, I thought, hey, I need to hit up Boyd. Like just shortly after that, he's like, okay, I don't have a lot set up right now, but I'll give you a key and let you come in and just practice your welding. So I'd go work at the machine shop and then go do welding nights and weekends over at the other shop until I quit there, and yeah, they were bummed, but it wasn't, what I wanted to do. So
Right.
Didn't know I was taking a huge pay cut, but I didn't have any idea what I was gonna be making or anything. And then like after working there for a month, like, hey, I kind of need some money, and he gave me $800 for the month. Like I got off at 1 o'clock, so I got another job delivering food. It was like Uber Eats nowadays, but this was 25 years ago.
Something to keep the money coming in.
Yeah, so I did that until that place went under. So when I started working at the hot rod shop again, it was only me and Dick Brogdon, the guy who I'd sent my resume to. And now he was having to do a little bit of work, and it was good. Like we got along great. We did the 32 truck, and then we got to restore Jamie Musselman's AMBR Roadster.
Right.
I got to work on Dennis Varney's Roadster, another AMBR car. And that kind of slowed up. He had the wheel shop next door. They were just rebuilding that up. The wheel shop was in the original hot rod shop on Monroe, where they did Cadzilla and all those cars, and the big murals out back. And behind it,
I was working I was the pinstriping lettering guy at Vale shop.
Vale's? Right next
there.
door.
I was right next door.
They moved the wheel shop to Anaheim, and we moved over there with it. And Boyd came. He had 2x6 aluminum rails, like 2x6 box tubing, and then set up on the table one morning, and then a really nice machined dropped axle. He's like, we're gonna make a frame for this aluminum car he's been talking about. He's like, oh, I don't know what we're gonna do on the top. And I was like, well, why don't we, I think this is like kind of my baby. I'm doing all this, trying to work on this thing. And I was like, well, why don't we build a bracket that bolts right onto the center section of the quick change, and then has brackets for a triangulated 4-bar. And he was like, okay, sure, go ahead and go over to the wheel side and work in there was a CAD, like the programming office was just one guy, but he had a couple computers in there. And so I go in there and try to start drawing this bracket up. I got that bracket done. We put it on, and Boyd came in and he was like, "You're gonna sit in the computer all day long now. I want you to draw chassis parts."
So is this good for you or bad for you?
It was good. I didn't, I got to sit in the air-conditioned office instead of out welding in the shop. It wasn't bad at all, and I liked doing it.
So were you doing any of the CNC stuff? Were you running that to see how it was going together, or was somebody else running that? You were just giving them programs?
No, so I was making whatever I was drawing.
Oh, you were in there putting it together too then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was just me and Dick in the hot rod shop. So whatever.
You're clamping chunks of aluminum down and whittling away then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I loved it so much. It was like right in my element. So I would go home and do it. I'd go home and work on, parts for this or that, and get them ready to come back and cut the next day.
So when did so now we're going to move forward here, that the whole TV show thing happened. Did that because that was it at that shop, or was that the next move?
We were there a couple of years, and we built the big buses for Skagway, Alaska.
Okay.
I didn't do much on those because at that time I was basically designing Boydster chassis and a little bit of the truck still, but at that time I had a guy helping me run the machine, so I was just design and program. So then we move out of there into the big shop in La Habra. Then we move into there, and then shortly after he's like, "Oh well, Discovery Channel's coming in, and they're gonna film a reality show." And
reality,
yeah. Well, so American Chopper it had been going for a year or two before this, and I was kind of watching it because that was the gearhead type TV, so I didn't like it too much, the angle grinders and unibits, and learned to like nicer processors, I guess. They come in and they're filming all day, every day, and telling can you do this a little different or something, a little bit like that. But mostly they just watched what we did and filmed everything. And then that's when they'd come back and have you, I need you to say, I really screwed this up, or, or so-and-so's an idiot, or just the stand-up lines.
Right.
That was intense because we were working 7 days a week, a lot of 12-hour days, and getting paid salary. So I was getting tired of the TV stuff over there. It was, I don't know.
It's time for a change.
Yeah, the way that it was, they edited it, all the programs, it was just a big soap opera. And Chip had started doing Overhaulin at this time, and that was a little more involved with, or just a little better produced show, I thought. Chip called me one day, and he's like, "Hey, they're looking for someone at the wheel shop. If I don't know if you're interested or not, but if you want to talk to Art, I'll give him your number." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm interested. That sounds like something I might be able to do." And so I go down and meet Art Hale Jr., who was running. Him and his sister started that MHT wheels.
Yeah, okay.
And at this time, I'm doing one-off wheels at Boyd's because all the chassis stuff had gotten caught up, and so.
So were you designing any of them, or were you?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were designing and whipping them out then.
I would design it, and then we had in the hot rod side we had 2 mills and a little lathe. We didn't have a big one, so I would give my drawings to the wheel shop, and then they would give me the blanks back, and we would cut the design, and then the wheel shop would finish the rest of it. Well, I go talk to Art about, he wanted me to come on and work, run the machine shop over there, and I had already lined up, but I had an appearance, American Hot Rod appearance thing lined up in Denver. I think it would be weird if I left Boyd before doing it. It was like 3 or 4 weeks out. And so I was like, I don't want to let Gil down, so I need to get his parts done. I'll do that. I'll do the appearance, and then I can start after that. And he's fine. He said, that's fine. You know, maybe you could start working with Chip a little bit at nights or something. So I started working. I'd go over to Chip's house, and we were working on motorcycle drawings for his motorcycle wheel line.
Okay.
Did that, and then I started working. Then I brought my notice in to resign right after the appearance in Denver. And then that's the moment that they caught on TV when Boyd's like, oh, I hear you're moonlighting, and then it shocked me because just the timing of it was pretty wild. And then he sent me home. He's like, go home. I need to think about this for a couple days. So I go home, and then I was like, well, shoot, I guess I got to, reword my resignation letter. So I redid it, brought it back the next day. I wasn't working. I just took it to the office and then went home. So I had buddies working there, and they're like, hey, they're planning to do all kinds. They're going to hold your tools. They're going to hold, and so I was like, oh, I got this. I went up there that night because they had a night shift, and they didn't know everything that was going on yet. And so I pull up with a trailer or a tow truck, load my toolbox. I had a 72 C10 short box I was building there. Load up all my stuff, the frame for my Model A, and then, but I was really careful because I was like, hey, I know this isn't the right way to do it, but
this is my stuff.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, there's a plier kit in my side cabinet that is Boyd's. So I made sure I left it. I wanted to be really careful about that. And the next day, everyone's calling me, oh, you got to get up here. The sheriff's department's here, blah, blah, blah. And I just blew them off. And then I heard about it later. And they're like, yeah, well, he took his truck and his tools and okay, so it sounded like it was all his stuff. Well, yeah.
So where did you go? Where did you go from there then? You were.
So my first week at MHT, I was on the set of Overhaulin.
Okay.
And
so right off the bat then went from one fire to another.
Right. So as soon as I was there, I went down with my laptop. Did the first car was 61 T-Bird Roadster. They had cut the top off it at this point. I walk in, the car's all taken apart, and I was just going to do the wheels. So I'd sit there with Chip for hours and draw the wheels. So then while I'm doing the overhauling thing, part of the deal I had with Art was if you want to, as long as you have my stuff running and you want to make something of your own, I'm totally fine with that. Art, he was bringing in these two new CAD programmer combo, whatever, this group that they wanted to come in, but they didn't want to work with me. So Art comes in one day, actually 1 year to the day that I started there, and he said, you're fired, today's your last day, but I'm going to continue and pay you for the next 2.5 months.
Okay.
So I packed up all my stuff that night, went home. Well, Chip had been trying to call me all day, and I didn't get it. And I talked to him the next morning, and he was like, hey, Art told me what's going on. We're doing A100 here on Overhaulin, and I need headlight, taillight bezels. Why don't you come down and draw them? Art said you can go back and use his machine shop, and then you can bill Overhaulin for the parts you're making. So I did that. So I was getting paid by MHT, and then I started working at Overhaulin. Overhaulin's paying me for these parts I'm providing, and I'm using MHT's equipment. So it was kind of wild. And then Bud, the producer of Overhaulin, he was like, hey, why don't you come on the show and help build on the A-team. So I worked out a deal with him and started doing that on the next car. I got contacted by one of the guys I worked with at MHT shortly after leaving there, and they had left on their own terms, but they were trying to do their own wheel thing, and they wanted me to come help do a drawings for them at this shop in Downey. He's like, hey, I'm kind of slow right now. What would you be interested in renting machine time from me? So you pay me a monthly fee, and then you can come in, use whatever machines you want, however much you want. And I was like, yeah, that's...
So the shop, the machines were just sitting vacant. They weren't being used at all, or
he was
little?
Very little. He was doing motorcycle wheels, okay. And so they were doing stuff here and there, and then so that's all, like mainly all I did out of that shop. I would go in there and make custom wheels. Somewhere along the lines of Overhaulin, well, Chip, he had the Hemisphere was being built at Metal Crafters. Metal Crafters was building 2 cars, and so he brought me over there to help design the suspension parts for it. They would give me a stick figure of what, where all the pivots needed to be and stuff, and then we did the spindles, backing plates, front and rear. And so I was over at Metal Crafters quite a bit too, overhauling Metal Crafters and Downey, like just running nonstop.
We're running.
I later got audited. They didn't believe how much gas I had bought that year.
And why don't you go with me one week and I'll show you?
And I went in there and had receipts, or was able to prove it all. And that was off on something, off for a couple $100 or something.
You were a busy boy. So when in there did you decide to go on your own? How did your own happen? Obviously, you're running around doing different.
Yeah, well, so when I started overhauling, right after MHT, when I did the taillight bezels, I had to have a business license in order for them to pay me. So that's when I went and got the business license for Curtis Speed Equipment and did all that stuff. When I was on the A team, I was getting paid directly, but then I was doing the Curtis Speed stuff on the side, and I was everything was good in Downey. Like after I think Overhaulin had they stopped filming for some, after I don't know, season 6 or something. But then I was pretty much full time in Downey, machining wheels and parts and stuff like that. And then there's a couple of years of that, well, total. The building where I'm at now, I had the very first unit, or I had half of it from Mickey Larson. He had twins in this building, and
oh, I didn't know that's where it was originally. It was here.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, down on the end here.
Okay.
And I bought this an old manual lathe, but it like teens. 1913.
Oh, old.
But it had 36 inches of travel. So I was like, and the wheels keep getting bigger at this time. And so I'm like, hey, this isn't a bad deal. I got that and a Bridgeport, and then it was kind of a downtime when I was outsourcing machining to a couple other shops. I was just doing the drawings and some programs. And then I did all the manual stuff here. And at that time, one of the kid that worked, he's older than me, I call everyone kid, but he moved to Hawaii during American Hot Rod. Well, he had just moved back right when I had started working here and was looking for a job. And we worked great together. So he came on board and was helping do all the manual stuff. We were putting wheels together, stuff we were having machined elsewhere. And then after a couple months of that, I find out that the machine shop down at the other end of the building with this unit right here, the guys were moving out. And so I talked to the landlord and had it arranged to take this shop over before they had even left.
Did you buy any of their equipment from them, or you just just get the building?
No, they had big gantry machines, and they did like spindle, different type of stuff. So no, I didn't have any machines, and came in, cleaned it up, tiled the floor, painted it up, and then I got Larry from EVOD loaned me, like we had he loaned me the money to start buying equipment. So I went and bought a mill, and then I got my first lathe was from Joe Coddington. Something, I don't know what happened, something with the American Race, because American Racing bought Boyd, but then they got it back right before he died, and they had moved some stuff to Kansas. Some stuff was in Long Beach, whatever. Well, she's like, hey, I got this machine in Kansas. If you pay to move it back, you can have it. And it was just one of the machines from Boyd's that did all the wheel centers.
Was it one you'd ever used before?
No, because I wasn't doing any of the wheel centers when I was there. So that was another learning curve, trying to figure out the lathes. The first Overhaulin wheel, we had the show's 8 days total. Like you go from Monday and you give the car back on a Monday. By the time you get done drawing the part, it was maybe another day until you get material. I was having to run the machines, and I'd run lathes before, but nothing big, always little stuff, and figured out on the first part you got to be a little more careful, and the bigger stuff will hurt a lot of stuff if it comes flying out. I screwed the machine up pretty good, and then I had to get it fixed and figure out how to make it work to get the stuff done. And yeah, the lathe was a whole nother learning curve. But
so you got set up in here. So the EVOD guy got you set up with a machine. Did you get the lathe then from Joe? Is that how that happened?
Yeah, I got that machine from Kansas from Joe, and it had sat in the yard for a long time, so we had to rebuild the whole thing, go through and
out there, so, sat in the yard. Okay.
Yeah, it was in pretty bad shape. So I got that one running, and so that was doing good. And then I slowly started getting more machines.
You're kind of the one-off wheel guy. That's kind of still what you do. Well, you're not like a big production shop. You get these crazy, like looking at that, the beadlock Porsche Fuke looking at me. So how did that become a thing? Or is it just people already knew who you were? It's like, oh, just call Mike. Mike's the guy for these one-off weird, would they bring you ideas, or they just go, hey, design me something cool that fits this look of this car? How do these happen?
So the EVOD deal, he did a couple of small shows with a little booth, but he was, I don't even know if he had any magazine ads, maybe a little one in the beginning or something, but he had all these high-end buddies that needed wheels for their cars. So we started doing, he would kind of work out what they wanted, like deal with all of that end of it, like, and then give me all the ideas. I would draw it, he would show it to him, make whatever changes, then I'd make it and go. And so, like, in the beginning, a lot of it was from EVOD, but then I would do stuff with Chip, or then it was, my friends like JF and Chip. They always need stuff too, and lots of others. So your
foot's in that door. You're part of the deal. Then you're just kind of in the center of all these guys going, hey, just call Mike. And
it's been and so I think 2008 they talked there was a recession or whatever, and I had no idea about that. I was slam busy ever since I opened.
Wow. What recession?
Wheels and parts and yeah.
So you're a busy guy now.
Yeah, it's been in here 16 years now.
Wow. Still doing lots of one-off stuff?
Lots of, yeah. I mean, yeah, we do one-off stuff every week. We have more production stuff now, but I've kind of been known as the hubcap guy, which is like a cheap version of a wheel.
Okay.
Which I kind of like. It's funny.
Well, so explain to me what a hubcap. I know what a hubcap is, but I guess I'm missing what we're.
Another guy I know is Alex Vodanovich, who's got the Hot for Teacher funny car.
Okay.
And he went to school with her and her sister and stuff, and he runs into her at the street fair, and he's like, "Oh man, I heard your sister's dating Mike Curtis," and she's like, "Oh yeah, is that the hubcap guy?"
The hubcap guy.
But then,
no respect, man.
well, I didn't. Who cares? But now it's funny because I make hubcap looking wheels for all the.
I understand what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, the Corvettes, Impalas, Bronco. There's a lot of different hubcaps, and so now it's pretty funny. It fits.
The hubcap guy. That's funny. Well, man, you've had quite the career. So, is there anything left you have that you'd like to accomplish before you're done? Is there any other directions you want to do? I mean, you've covered a lot of the whole hot rodding world.
I don't know. Like, I'm involved with a lot of really cool cars, Ridler winners, the Slonaker. It's great being involved with those, but it's not really the same as. It's only a small piece of the puzzle, and I'd really like to win the America's Most Beautiful Roadster, and the last couple of years I've been working more on the Model A Phaeton that the Luma truck was,
right,
and it's been close to 20 years since I started the frame for that car, but all of the technology with even the CAD modeling and stuff has come so far that the car's really progressed a lot more than.
So you're going to try to play the aluminum look like that deal, or maybe your own deal and maybe go more traditional, but still play the old look. What is your?
No, I'm like, it's probably screwed up, but it's gonna be kind of I'm thinking along the lines of the the Voidster stuff, where it's all polished, billet, kind of, a lot more updated and definitely newer finishes and technology stuff, but that's kind of. I don't know, that's the look that I gravitated towards in high school, and I kind of got stuck with it. I mean, I like all kinds of cars.
Well, I asked because of you do aluminum wheels. That's kind of your thing, and try to the term billet is just wore out. But making things out of aluminum, I was really blown away when you did the wire wheels for Chip for the Jaguar, because it makes aluminum wire wheels. That's a weird. I can't even imagine how that was to set up on a mill and a lathe. But would you do something like that on your car, or would you stick more with just the aluminum wheel look?
I don't know about that. And being around, being in the wheel and tire is the single most important thing you can do to change the look of a car.
Absolutely.
And I learned that pretty young. I don't know, that's the first thing I look at when I look at a car. You look at a girl's boobs, you look at the car's wheels. That's just where your eye goes. It's just natural.
It's a guy thing, sure.
But so I don't want to get too set on it until it's almost done, which is also dumb because I'm building a car that like a 40-year-old trend.
Well, in 20 years, everything changes. So it's been this long. I mean, in 5 years,
it was
you're
already,
going to go, man, I've already had 10 different wheel ideas for this thing. So
yeah, I don't it'll probably be a simple 5-spoke. It's hard to beat that. It'll definitely be a lot of work, but it won't look like it.
Right. Well, anything else you want to talk about?
I was going over pictures and stuff last night, and the Illuma truck is one of my that's my favorite car. Yeah, well,
just the concept of it. I mean, just because of what it was.
No, well, I mean, I built all the chassis and most of the running, all the bracketry and mounting stuff. I had a little bit of help, but that was kind of my baby.
Okay.
And even when more guys came on, I would have them help me with it here or there, but it was my ideas for a lot of it. And that was Boyd just kind of let me run, and so I would figure out what I thought looked good, and so we got that thing done, and it. I mean, it was in several magazines. I remember now, but it didn't. It never really got the credit I think it deserved. But maybe it did, and I just don't know that.
Pay attention.
Yeah, because last night I was like, oh yeah, it was in the Auto Journal, and it was.
This has been quite a couple of good chapters of life there, man. You've definitely written a book.
Fun, yeah.
So, thank you, Mike, very much.
Yeah, thanks for coming by.
Instead of trying to introduce all the crew members on Stories in Steel, we figured it would be easier to show our audience a picture of us in action, and we turned it into a poster. Click on the link to purchase the complete set of one.